How do you do? Thank you for having me on. I thought you made a number of very interesting points there. And the thing that really struck me was the way that you focused it around the 1965 Immigration Act. And you focused it around what you see as a deliberate attempt on the part of elites to remove white people from, from the United States and from the West. And I think we're seeing a much more nuanced process than that, and a process that's lasted a lot longer. I would look at this in broad evolutionary terms. Until about 1800, we had 50% child mortality. And we were selecting for certain things. We were selecting for, we know we were selecting for intelligence. We were selecting for religiousness, which tends to make being group oriented into the will of God and is associated with mental and physical health. We were selecting for being group oriented and ethnocentric. We were selecting for being mentally healthy and physically healthy. We were selecting basically for what we would call group oriented moral foundations, being interested in the good of the group, obedience to authority, sanctity. And we were kind of selecting against being selfish and individually oriented, being only up for the good of yourself, being focused on equality, which gets more for you, being focused on harm avoidance, which gets more for you. And these things become pleiotropically related. So they all become bundled together. And that's what we were selecting for. And that's why even now, conservatism and religiousness, being right wing, are genetically associated with all markers of genetic health you can think of. Now, with the collapse of child mortality from 50% in 1800 down to fewer than 1% today, you're going to have a massive buildup of mutation. And that mutation is going to be in the direction of being individually oriented. I don't mean individually oriented in the Ayn Rand sense of individually oriented. I mean being selfish. I mean being focused on me, on the good of me, being basically left wing. Because it's found that being left-wing people are not interested in group-oriented values and the good of the group. They're interested in the individually-oriented values, in equality and in harm avoidance. And also they're high in mental instability, because that's what we were selecting against, and physical illness, because that's what we're selecting against. And so because you're high in mental instability, you don't dare go for a fair fight, because you're neurotic, you're mentally unstable. So you virtue signal. You virtue signal about equality. You virtue signal about harm avoidance. You side with the outsider, the different ethnic group. You collaborate in order to get power within your own group. And that's what leftists do. They tend to value their moral circle is genetically further from self. They value the different ethnic group over their own, the different family over their own, and so on. And so what you would see is this build-up of mutation in the population. And eventually we would tip over into being a left-wing society, into being a liberal society. Eventually, it's been found in the experiments that when about 20% of a society think in a new way, then we tip over very quickly. And so we go from being a highly conservative, group-oriented religious society to runaway individualism, and then when that happens, you see intelligence, normal range intelligence, the midwit, normal range intelligence is associated with social conformity. Because more intelligent people, they look around the world, and they notice, if I socially conform, I'll get higher status, I'll get more resources. So they force themselves via effortful control to conform. And so then intelligent people competitively signal equality, harm avoidance, and it goes on and on and on and on. Runaway individualism, runaway harm avoidance, until you get to a point where you can't say a man's a man and a woman's a woman. And until you get to a point where you start saying, as a white person, you signal your goodness and your morality by saying it's bad to be white, it's wrong to be white, you shouldn't have children if you're white, you shouldn't pass on your genes if you're white, you should flagellate yourself eternally if you're white. And what you're doing then is you're putting people not on the adaptive roadmap of life, which tells them to, look after their group, be pro-social, pass on their genes, all that sort of thing, but on a maladaptive roadmap of life. And then you're creating a selection event where the only people that will be resistant to a society that is telling them to damage their own interests will be those who are genetically resistant to that. And who will those people be? They will be those who are genetically religious and genetically conservative. And we know that the heritability of religiousness and the heritability of conservatism is about 0.6. So about 60% of the differences is to do with genes. So this is a selection event. And although in general, intelligence is negatively associated with fertility, weakly, if you control for intelligence, if you just look at the top quartile of intelligence, then you find that in America, I look at this in my book, The Past as a Future Country, The Coming Conservative Demographic Revolution, then in the top quartile, the big predictor of fertility is that you are religious and you are conservative. And the big predictor of sterility is that you are liberal and you are an atheist. Both are becoming stupider, but the liberals are becoming stupider more quickly among the white population. And so what that augurs is a tipping back among the Generation Z or whatever, who seem, by the way, to be not as liberal as they should be. If you compare people aged 20 and people aged 40 and how liberal they are, there's a clear difference always, and they're not as liberal as they should be. It implies a polarization effect, whereby these people are splitting up and becoming in some way more conservative. And so you have a flip back towards conservatism. Eventually, this would come among whites, and liberalism would just be ethnic minorities, the foreign right. And the other thing that, of course, this does, this process of telling white people they're bad, is it creates a sense of solidarity. It creates a sense of in-group connectedness, a sense of, okay, yeah, we are bad. We don't care anymore. It's gone too far. We no longer care what you say. And you would expect a retreat on the part of white people, and perhaps also more intelligent Jewish people and more intelligent ethnic minorities as well. They might white a line. When Rome collapsed, and we are going to collapse as civilization because we're losing about an IQ point per decade due to the negative correlation between intelligence and fertility. That means in 3 decades, you halve the number of people with an IQ of 130. Society will decline, but Rome didn't completely decline, you see. It retreated into a sort of Byzantiums, where civilization held out, and it sucked in the more intelligent and the more conservative sort of people, and it held out against the barbarians at the gate. And I would suspect that this is what would happen. And this is what these people in Baton Rouge are doing. I suspect they're relatively religious. I suspect they're relatively conservative. I suspect they're relatively intelligent. And they've had so much pushed at them over such a long time that they've just thought, to use English parlance, bugger it. We're not having this anymore. And they break away. And also, if you get a multicultural, a multi-ethnic society, Rob Putnam's research showed this, it eventually balkanizes. It balkanizes for 2 reasons. One, if intelligence is in decline, trust goes down. Intelligence is in decline. And 2, it's just from an ethnic genetic similarity theory perspective, we tend to cooperate more and trust more those that are like us. And so therefore trust declines. And 3, trust declines even among the whites, because the whites will perceive correctly that some whites will collaborate with the ethnic minorities against them.
Yeah, we see that happening already. I mean, you see these,
Absolutely, because as I said earlier, the left-wing whites are born traitors.
Yeah.
Their moral circle of normal people is you are at the center, and then your family, and then your kin, and then your ethnic, and then your race, and then your species, and then other species like that. The moral circle of leftists is different. It's steps away from them. They identify, with a different class over their own, let's say. And this permits them to collaborate with that class to gain power over their own class. And you see this with the Labour Party in the UK or with the Democrats or whatever. So this process is occurring. I see it as an evolutionary reaction. If you take away evolutionary pressures, which we have done, they have collapsed. 50% child mortality, 1%. Then what you are selecting for is people who, and if you place then a negative evolutionary pressure, i.e. you pressure people, you hypnotize people, induce people to act against their genetic interests, you hijack their desire for status, you will get status. If you renounce having children, you will get status. If you renounce the good of your people, then you set up a genetic selection event. So you could almost argue these people, these leftists, I used to call them spiteful mutants. You could argue they are altruistic mutants. They are helping to bring about a situation where the only white people in America that will be left will be highly conservative, highly ethnocentric, highly intelligent, i.e. exactly the kind of white people that existed before the Industrial Revolution. And because those things correlate with being mentally and physically healthy, highly healthy as well. So that when the next solar flare hits and knocks out the electricity system, or when the next volcano erupts, as it did in 1200 BC and caused the Bronze Age collapse or whatever, then there'll be people that will be healthy enough to survive and healthy enough to win the battle of group selection that gets set off when resources are limited. So in a sense, it is a group-level adaptation. Wokeness can be seen as a group-level adaptation. So when you say they are deliberately doing this, it is the Great Replacement. You can interpret it like that. In fact, I've interviewed on my show the Jolly Heretic, René Camus, who came up with the idea of the Great Replacement. But I'm not sure it's quite so much a conspiracy. I think it's got deep evolutionary underpinnings. And that's the result is the same, which is these people are breaking away. And of course, everyone's in panic about it because these are the people that are intelligent. These are the people that are hardworking. These are the people that pay the taxes.
But these are also the people who will survive. So
yes,
there is a bright outlook in that. I'm out of time. I got to get to break, but it's brilliant take, actually. And I'd like to have you back to talk more about how deep this evolutionary process actually is. Ed Dutton, thank you so much. God bless you.
Pleasure.
Let's face it, our power grid is completely unstable, which means that our communications, your cell phone, is completely unstable. You ever have an outage? You go somewhere where there's no service? So between the massive illegal invasion of our country and the billions, of course, that we're sending out to other nations, our grid remains at risk every single day. Last year, an electronic substation had a sudden massive voltage surge. It left over 1 million homes without power and threatened the grid. How did this happen? This happened because of a simple rodent infestation. Look, the media won't tell you that we're so vulnerable to a grid collapse, but I will. Now, the way that you stay vigilant and prepared when emergencies like this happen, it's not just through stockpiling canned foods and making an end times bunker. No, you need to have a form of reliable communication that's also fast and easy to use. Rapid Radios provides an array of quality-built walkie-talkies, 4G LTE walkie-talkies, and emergency radios that get service everywhere, and they're made for everyone. Your kids and your grandparents can easily use this nationwide LTE walkie-talkie to stay connected with fast communication, no matter where you are. I use them on my boat. And these devices aren't just for emergencies. Like I said, me on the boat, your family taking them camping, as their compact design makes them great for travel. They're durable so they can handle tough conditions and keep you connected. Rapid Radios offers nationwide coverage with no monthly fees, no contracts, and unlimited use. You heard that right. Support American company Walkie Talkie. Nationwide usage, worldwide, wherever there's satellite service. These are talkies for emergency communication as well as for recreational communication. I highly encourage that you visit rapidradios.com and use my promo code STU for a big discount. Again, rapidradios.com, promo code STU.
I'm going to ask you for your undivided attention because I'm going to tell you about what could possibly be the most important life-saving supplement that I have ever talked about. It's called Cardio Miracle. Each serving of Cardio Miracle has a combination of over 50 high-quality ingredients, including a huge variety of fruits, vegetables, amino acids, and herbs, all of which come together to promote your body's ability to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is so important for heart health. It helps to relax and dilate your blood vessels, which supports blood flow and circulation. And I love that you don't have to take this giant pill to get all of this nutrition. No, Cardio Miracle comes in a powder formula, so it's really easy to mix all day throughout the day into juice or water and take it at any time. That also helps to support mood regulation because it's a neurotransmitter. It's a neuromodulator in the brain. So it can support the release of serotonin and dopamine, both of which are really important and involved in mood regulation. Cardio Miracle also supports mental clarity, sleep quality, energy levels. It can even help with recovery after exercise. Nitric oxide is essential for so many functions in the body, and Cardio Miracle supports the production of nitric oxide so you get many benefits from just one supplement. Please go to highpowerheart.com. Again, highpowerheart.com. I'm telling you, this could quite possibly be the most important supplement that I will ever talk about. Cardio Miracle. Go to highpowerheart.com.